Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler from Melda Production, and today I'm going to be going over the differences between the different reverbs in Melda's catalog. I did this before with EQs and compressors, and reverbs I think are a little bit more simple to understand, but I think some people don't understand the differences, and I thought I'd try to go through them and make that more clear today. I'll try to do this quick so it doesn't take too long, but I want to go through this so you have an understanding why you'd want to use one versus the other. Here we go. So let's start with just a sound so you can hear it. I'll try to demo a few of these sounds here. So I just have a basic synth sound here, and I'm going to put a few different reverbs and describe what the differences are. So the first one I have is MConvolutionEZ. This is a free reverb. It comes in the free Melda pack. What you can do with this is just load up any impulse response in it. It comes with quite a few you see here, like box, chambers, church, etc. So it's not like it lacks any, but you could also load your own by clicking custom path and finding them in there. And from here, you can adjust the wet dry, widening, high pass, and low pass, and pre-delay. And so let's just put one on here. Let's use a hall like this. That's 100%. Probably need to move this down to like 50% so you can hear it. And there's, of course, other ones you could choose, like, let me see if I can find a really big one. Small, like large, natural, neutral. So if you like using impulse responses, this is a good lightweight one. It doesn't have too many options, but it's free. This can also be used to load impulse response files for things like guitar cabinets too. So if you want to use it for that, that's another use for this. And the high pass and low pass filters make this really convenient. Simple, but it does what you need. Next one is similar. This one obviously you have to pay for, but this one also allows you to load impulse responses, but it has nice GUI here, so you can do all that exact same stuff and just but it has nicer GUI. But not only that, there's some other things too. Let's do another one here. You might think, oh, it's just the nicer GUI, but it's not. There's other things too. If we go in here, you see we have the exact same thing where we can load in all those impulse responses. You could add your own impulse responses. It has a visual information here, but besides the visual information, if you see this here, we can control the volume. So this can be moved there. So you're seeing this, and you have all sorts of weird volume tricks you could do with it. Let's see if I can do one like this. Let's see how this sounds. You can kind of hear it fading back in. So there's things you can do with that. I probably wouldn't want to do that, but you can if you want. And you can do the same thing with a low pass filter or high pass filter, which can be, fun. Besides that, it also has another slot where I can put a second impulse response there. So if on A, let's say I put like a hall, I could put a room there, and this will be in parallel. Or on A, I could put, let's say, a guitar cabinet, and on B, I could put a room reverb and then put it in serial mode. So it would go into the guitar cabinet, and then into the reverb. So that's a cool thing you can do with it. Also, you can record your own impulse responses using two instances of this. Use one and record, then put whatever plugin or whatever hardware or something in between it, then put another MConvolution afterwards, click test tone on the first, and then you can record an impulse response. So you can make your own with that. And finally, it has multi-band options here. So you can go in and have different frequency splits, panorama splits, mid-side splits, all sorts of interesting things you can do with this. You can do even more with that. Oh, also, I should mention, it also has this, which is kind of like a, I don't know how you describe it. It's an artificial impulse response. So this is one that's made up of, I believe, white noise. But you can shape this in lots of different ways. You can mess with the density, the decay, etc. Like that. Dampening, yeah. And all those things will alter the reverb or the impulse response in different ways. So you can kind of make your own. And that's always fun. You can adjust the ratio between A and B, etc. So that's MConvolutionMB. I think that's a big upgrade to the free one. But obviously, sometimes you're like, I only need something, lightweight. Then you might want to go with the MConvolutionEZ. However, if you're not looking for any convolution reverb, the next one we can use is MReverb. So this is a very basic reverb. I think this is the first reverb Melda came out with. So we have a few things here. Let's look at this. Listen to the large chamber. This is a nice sounding reverb. This doesn't have as many modes, but as you can see here, it has enough that you can get things done. It has a nice GUI here, which makes it fairly easy. It has an equalizer here where you can cut the mids or cut the highs, etc., and shape it in lots of different ways. And not only do we have the pre-delay, which we had on the convolutions, but we can also change the diffusion or use modulation. Oh, I should mention, even in MConvolutionMB, you can add modulation to the impulse responses, so that's a cool thing. You can also adjust the size on MReverb and the length, etc. If you want to, you can go into the edit screen here, and you see there's lots of different things in here. We can do various things instead of having just a little bit of reverb control. We have a 3-band control where you can move everything all around however you want. You can right-click it and change the types of filters here. Change the degrees, etc. if you want. So there's a lot you can do there. On top of that, you can change the reverb mode. It has 4 different modes here. You can have just the low dampening, high dampening, widening, etc. But also, let me turn this to 100%. You see this? You can adjust where it is in the stereo field, like this. Here. Other side. So you can do things that way, and that's cool if you want to position things in space. So it's very nice for that. There's also another one, MReverb I'm not going to show that because it's the exact same thing as MReverb. The only difference is, like MConvolutionMB, it has a multi-band mode. So you can split it by frequency, by where in the stereo field, you can split it mid-side, etc. But it'll be the exact same thing as MReverb, except you'll just have more. And so that's a nice one too. And you can do the same thing with the different devices here with MReverb. So you can decide which one you want there. If you need, I really need that, multi-band power, get MReverb. Next one I'll show is MTurboReverb. This is the big one. This is actually one of my favorites. What this has is tons and tons of different reverbs. This one's not based on IRs. This is all algorithmic reverbs. And you see there's tons of them with many different algorithms. So you saw MReverb before that had 4 different algorithms. Each one of these is a different algorithm. Some of them are just like, oh, there's slight variations on it. Some of them are completely different. Let me let you listen to a few of them. This. Or this. I don't want to demonstrate all of these, but as you'll notice here, these aren't just like, oh, they're slightly different presets. Each of these can be changed lengthwise. This is not even the normal length. This is the early reflection length. Here is the normal length you can change. You can change the size. You can add modulation to it if you want, etc. There's lots of things you can play with and do with this. So each of these are completely different. On top of that, if you look here, lots of them actually have different modes. So it's not just like, oh, this is the one algorithm. It has slight differences even inside here, like this. So there's all sorts of things you can do with this. It also has things like plate reverbs. have small spaces, large spaces. You have like really creative ones like ethereal. I like this one. Sounds good to me. And it even has something similar like this 2D like scoring stage here. I'll show this. And this one you can kind of move around too. And as I said, it has different modes here. So I think this is the big one, and something I'll show with this, and something I'll explain here, is there's actually about 3 versions of this. There's MTurboReverb, which you're seeing here. There's MTurboReverb LE. The LE edition is a lighter edition, and it has everything here, but it doesn't have the edit button. I'll show you inside here what you can do with the edit button. So there's tons of stuff here. You're thinking like, oh, this is a lot. There's lots of controls. Inside here, there's even more. There's lots of spaces for not impulse responses, early reflections. You can even analyze impulse response files and get the early reflections, so you can kind of make your own. You can do it manually if you want. You can add multiple layers of early reflections. Here's the late reflections, which you normally think of, and you can write your own algorithms in here. You can adjust the algorithms in various ways. So you can really come up with something unique that maybe nobody has ever come up with or nobody's ever heard of before. You have all sorts of different options. You can combine these together. You have some gates and compressors in here you can add to it if you want. There's EQs you can add to it if you want. This is even a mid-side EQ if you want to add that. So there's quite a few things you can do with it. And besides that, you're like, oh, where is the EQ? Is it before or after? And it's like you can choose it. Put in the input after the dynamics, the reverb after the dynamics, or the output. So you have all sorts of options to do a number of things that maybe most people won't. But if you're experimental, or if you think like you hear something but it's like, I just want to change it a little bit, this is great. The LE version doesn't allow you to do this, so it's kind of the difference. If you're a power user, you probably want MTurboReverb. And if you're kind of a lighter user and you're just like, I just want some cool reverbs to mess with, you might want the LE version. The third one, which I'm going to talk about, is the MConvolutionMB. That one comes with MTurboReverb. So if you buy MTurboReverb, you'll get the multiband version that comes with it. And that's exactly as I showed you before. It's this, but it's multiband. So you can put them together in different ways and combine them. So if you want, I want a small room for the things in the middle, but I want a large hall for the things on the sides, you can do that. Or maybe you want a different room for the left and right hand sides of the stereo field, which might be interesting. You could do that. There's all sorts of creative possibilities. So that is that. And the last one is also a free one. This is a free algorithmic reverb called MCharmverb. This is really cool. It's a basic version of MTurboReverb, but MTurboReverb has a lot of different algorithms and a lot of different sounds, but the, I guess, simplest one is used in this. So this is kind of like a very good sounding room reverb, but if you want things like plates or springs, or you want like the sound of older vintage style reverb units, you probably need MTurboReverb. But if you're just looking for something that sounds good, sounds like a nice room, MCharmverb will do. And like I said, it's free. You have the pre-delay, you have gain, you have widening, high cuts, low cuts. This one you can change the size on things, you can change the dampening. You can even add modulation here. And using the designer and changing the seed, you can get a few different sounds out of it. But this is nice because it doesn't sound metallic. It sounds good. I think it doesn't have so much character, but sometimes you don't want character. You just want a nice, clean room. So if you're looking for something that's not an impulse response, but it sounds good, this works. So those are the differences between the different Melda reverbs. There's quite a lot. Personally, I oftentimes use MCharmverb. It's really cool, and you don't have to go searching through various reverbs in MTurboReverb. But if I'm looking for something algorithmic and with a little bit more character, I'll use MTurboReverb for that. It has all sorts of different things. And sometimes I like going through these, especially with the wet dry controls. You can lock it. Like here, if I have it on like 75%, it's like, oh, this is how much I need. And then I go to a different one. You see it's locked there for all of these. And that way I can kind of audition the different ones until I find something I really like. The MReverb, I don't use all that often, but I think it's still a cool reverb. I really like this where you can move around in the stereo feel. I think that's really cool. MConvolutionMB, I use this like more for like sound design stuff because I like messing with impulse responses and things. And this one is really powerful for that type of stuff, or when I'm creating my own impulse responses. And lastly, MConvolutionEZ, I just use when I need an impulse response loader. I don't want something that's so big. I just want, like, I need to use this one sound. It sounds great for that. I mean, sometimes you don't need any more control. Sometimes just the wet, dry, high pass, and low pass is enough. So hopefully that gave you an overview of what the differences are between all of these different types of reverbs. If you have any other questions, leave them down below. If you like this, give me a thumbs up and check out all the other plugins at meldaproduction.com. Till next time, see you.